Hey, YouTube family, how are you doing tonight? I have a special guest tonight. This man competed in the UFC Octagon 17 times in the lightweight division, which is always talked about as the hardest division in the UFC. Three fight of the night bonuses. Um, Probably one of the most exciting lightweights in any organization that you could ever watch. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer the King Fisher. How are you doing, Spencer?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it is like I said before, it's an honor to meet you. We've talked a little bit recently. I've gotten to know you. Um, Tell me about growing up in North Carolina. Take us back to being a kid.
That's where I'm at currently. Grew up in a place called Cashiers, North Carolina. A lot of the people, it's a small mountain town up North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and we have a lot of retiree people from Florida that move up there, and they call it Cashiers, but it's pronounced Cashiers, and whenever I was growing up, I think it had a one stop light and then one stop sign in the beginning, and then it before I left, it was one stop light. So
um, did you go to school and do wrestling in a young age, or was it NWA? I think it was at the time. Global Dome Wrestling, maybe WCW.
so when it comes to wrestling, they call it wrestling around here.
Wrestling.
Yeah, so, yeah. We in Blue Ridge, we didn't have a wrestling team, but I was a hardcore. Uh, Back in my time, it was NWA, on the southern region,
Hmm.
and, of course, that's where, the Road Warriors, Ric Flair, Rick Steamboat, uh, Sting, of course, all those
Hmm.
guys were in this area, Magnum TA, a huge wrestling fan, and, when I grew up to be only 5'7" and a half, 5'8", whatever I am, uh, I knew those dreams were out the window, and then, got into saw Bloodsport actually first, and then like, man, that'd be awesome if that was real. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, the UFC came on, and I was hooked.
Did you were you exposed to mixed martial arts, I guess, before UFC, or was UFC the first introduction for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, the UFC was definitely the first mixed martial arts, like the early one. I think I didn't see the first one, but I had to drive down to Silva, where I'm living currently, which is an hour drive to the video store that rented the UFC too, and it was just I was hooked. So
Did I ever tell you my first UFC story? It was very similar to that. UFC 8 was the first one I ever saw. My little brother and I were exposed to it. We found it, I believe, at a Blockbuster video. And within 48 hours, we had a membership at every movie rental store in 2 counties, rented everything we could. And what's kind of cool is being part of these fighter interviews. As you know, the first person I was lucky enough to get to speak to was Gary Goodrich. He was the first fight I ever saw in UFC. So the full circle moment to come back and to be able to talk to him, be able to talk to you. Tell us, how did being a NWA wrestling fan turn into a fight career?
well, my grandparents had put me in karate to try to control my anger, and it kind of backfired. I was kind of known as the Karate Kid guy, and got in tons of fights. And my martial arts instructor, my karate instructor, was a Shotokan black belt, and he would always, was a good mentor as far as like, hey, this is about respect and martial arts. You don't want to use it for
Mhm.
the wrong reasons. And I like that. Did tournaments, but what's funny is even though I was doing karate for the fighting part, when I went to do the tournaments, I always won. All my trophies were from doing kata. They were not from the point sparring, but I never told anybody that part. I'd always just bring home a big trophy. Like, yeah, yeah, I won, but it was for the kata, And of course, when I seen the UFC, um, there was a guy in Asheville, which is about 2 hours from me, and I started driving over to his place. It started out once a week and then twice a week, and it was a private small group of guys, and uh, just had we would do real mixed martial arts. So he was a kickboxer, and he was doing submission grappling. It was JKD, the Jeet Kune Do system, the Bruce Lee
Hmm.
system, and so we weren't wearing a gi, and we would spar hard for like real. He said a real fight is only 90 seconds, in real life. So
Yeah.
we would do 10.5 rounds, and I started getting from I went from karate and all that stuff to when I seen the UFC, everybody wanted to do it, and so I had contacted them, and they said that I needed real fights, and I was like huge. I had all the Gracie in action videos, and my all-time favorite fighter to this day is Hickson Gracie, and
Yeah.
I watched all the Gracie in action videos and just heard the numerous people talk about what a legend he was. So being a 19-year-old kid, I think 18 or 19, my girlfriend and I at the time drove out to California for the Gracie Challenge, but I was a little confused about what I was getting into. I had the idea that I was going to go out there and fight and show my worth to those guys. I didn't know that I was going to go out and fight them. And I drove from North Carolina, from the East Coast, Western North Carolina, all the way out to Torrance, California,
Whew.
and my girlfriend at the time, and being a 19-year-old, 18 or 19-year-old kid, whatever I was out back then, I drove to the Torrance Academy. Was just in awe about, oh my gosh, I got to meet Hoist Gracie and all the guys. But my main reason for going was to meet Hickson. Well, when I get there, I walk in and there are a bunch of guys in the room like, hey, get out of here. And I'm like, oh man, what did I walk into? But they had me signing like 4 or 5 different waivers, and I was kind of confused, and, I was like, "Where's Hickson at?" And like, "Oh, he doesn't train here anymore." And I wanted to leave right then. But, it was kind of a weird situation. My cousins are police officers and firefighters that went with me, and I wasn't supposed to bring anybody but one person, and I brought the family. And of course, we brought cameras. We weren't supposed to have cameras, but I brought like a little camera, and anyhow, walked upstairs with Horiana. I was just like in shock and awe, and we walked upstairs to where you see that big green mat at that, and then again, I had 2 channels in North Carolina, so I didn't have cable TV, and go in there, and there is the guy from the Wonder Years and Al Bundy and a lot of celebrities, but I had no clue who they were, but my cousins did, and I don't know how I didn't know Al Bundy at the time, but I didn't, and he was training there, and they completely broke me down from the minute I walked in. Uh, my record was a little bit exaggerated, a lot exaggerated, but I got out there, and the first guy who I fought was Joe Pardo, who ended up
Oh
fighting in the
wow.
UFC. Yeah, and, I think he was a blue belt then, but I had all my grappling experience combined was maybe 3 months, of actual grappling and rolling, and, I got introduced to the reality of grappling. Back then, if you found a blue belt anywhere around here, it was a god, but,
Sure.
they had a bunch of the guys that I was gonna fight lined up against the wall. They all had gi bottoms on and regular t-shirts, no belts, and, they said where I was from, that I was coming out there to challenge the Gracies, and, I was like, "All right, I guess," and, you can't drive all that far and then back down.
No.
So they put me Joe, and, he beat me up pretty quickly. I might have thrown a punch or kick, I don't know, but he picked me up, slammed me on the ground, smacked me in the back of the neck, and choked me. And I was like, "Holy shit, that was fast." And I was embarrassed. And then Hoist came back, and I remember him saying something like, "Oh, you know what I go through, and you want to do it again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess. Why not?" So I go out, fight another guy, but I started doing pretty well against him. He runs me into the wall. Of course, my family are up around me taking pictures, like being the
Mhm.
Billies that we are, ran up, was taking pictures, and I got taken down, obviously, as like I do in every fight. And he got on top of me, and I knew he was going to try to armbar me, so I wasn't going to get my arm broken. So I tapped out. He didn't stop punching me, and so I tapped out again, and then my family yelled, "Hey, he tapped!" And they ended up pulling him off me, or he got off me somehow. I tried to shake his hand. He did not want to shake hands, and being a kid, I was pretty upset and went in the back again. And my cousins were talking to me, and he came back. Hoist or Horny on one came back and tried to get them to fight. And they're like, "We don't know how to do this shit." And so, yeah, I said, "You know what? I'll do it again." And I went out and I wanted to fight that guy again who I just fought, but another guy jumped up and was like, "I'll fight." And now at this time, there were supposed to be no time limits, no rules except for eye gouge and biting and stuff like that. Headbutts,
Mhm.
all that was real. And I don't know how long we went, but uh, I felt like I was doing well, but he kept hitting me in the kidneys, that heel kick that Hoist did. Let me be the first to
Mhm.
tell you that I pissed blood for 2 weeks
Mhm.
after that. So
Yeah.
they called that a draw, but I wanted to keep going. And anyhow, it left a bad taste in my mouth, with that whole ordeal. But like the next day, we went to Hickson's Academy, which was in Santa Monica. I
Mhm.
went in there and I had no idea who all these guys were that were in there teaching his class. I said, "Is Hicks in here?" And like, "No, he's not here today. But you're welcome to watch." So I was ready to leave, and how certain things stick in your mind for the rest of your life. There was a
Yeah.
green Explorer pulled in, and it said "One Rio Kid" on the license plate, and I knew it. I said, "That's him. That's him." And he came in, which is so funny because he came in and he started introducing himself to everybody sitting down, but all the guests were watching and giving people hugs. And I stood up to get my hug. I'm a grown man, but like I wanted to give my hug too. But
I would have
uh,
too.
yeah, it was kind of surreal for me. But that was my real introduction. And then I knew
How does
that the
that turn
grappling.
into Militich?
What's that?
How does that segue into the Militich fighting system?
Fast forward, we got a hold of somebody from the UFC. I don't remember who it was at the time. And they said, "Well, how many fights do you have?" And I'm like, "What kind of fights?" And they're like, "We need real, no rules kind of fights." So, me being a dumb kid, I would dojo storm places. I'd call them up and like,
Yep.
"Hey, you guys want to can I come to your gym?" And it rubbed people the wrong way, because
Sure.
here they were karate kicks, and I'm Thai kicking these guys, and they didn't know what to do, and they're like, "Get the hell out of here, get out of here." I got a bad reputation because I was quick to fight, but I always carry a video camera around with me. And so there was numerous times, that I'd get in fights and hang on a second, and someone would videotape, or I always have people around. And just fast forward there, I got a hold of Javier from AKA back in the day, and I was going to go up there and train. And they threw me a going away party, and my first one, and my lifelong bully was at the place, and I left my own going away party. And then I know I was supposed to be a tough guy, but he did this. And then so I left and told him, I said, "Do it again, but make sure it's kind of without him." So
Yeah.
I go back again, and sure enough, I ended up getting a fight with a big guy, broke my hand. And it was just kind of wild because I broke my hand on this guy and I thought it's over. So my trip to AKA was over. And but 2 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, I ended up meeting my wife at a party. And so it worked out for the best, I guess. Everything that was supposed to happen did. And the day after Jens won the title, him and Pat came to North Carolina, and I scrounged what money I could together to do the seminar, and we drove out to the Pat Militich seminar, and I met Jens and Pat, and they invited me out. Actually, before that, I trained with Mark Coleman and Brendan Hinkle
Okay, yeah.
down at over gym, and I remember all those guys had came in, and I remember looking at those guys like, "Holy shit, look at their ears!" And I didn't understand the cauliflower ear at the time. I just thought that was, that's what happens when you're a fighter. And a side note from that, I used to flick my ear and twist it and pull it and
Ew.
punch it to try to get it because like I thought you weren't tough unless you had your battle scars, and I ended up fast forward going back up to Militich's. Matt Hughes got me in a headlock one time, and it blew up, and it was so big, it looked like a joined fetus on the side of my head, and I
Like a
was so
giant
proud of it.
hematoma?
Oh man, it was huge. I mean, it stuck out to like here, and I was so proud of it. My wife said, "Hey," she said, "You're ugly as it is. You better drain that," So I did, but that was it. But as far as Militich goes, I had been looking up everybody from the Tuesday night fights to the Extreme Challenge that Monty Cox had put on there. And when Pat gave me the invite, whenever I met him and Jens at the seminar, I immediately started researching all these guys, and I knew all the local fighters, the guys that were coming up in the ranks. And when I got out there, I was starstruck, because
Yeah, sure.
these know who I was, but I knew who every one of them were. So
Hmm. Wow. I've heard stories. I've read stories. I've been told stories about what some of the maybe after hours training that not everybody got to see at Militich was like, and I don't know how you guys ever made it to a fight. I don't know how you ever made it to the cage. Pretty brutal stuff, man.
absolutely. When I got up there, I didn't know that Jens and Pat were both trying to drop me. I was up there, and again, I didn't know what was right, what was wrong, and appropriate to wear. And I was wearing like 10-ounce bag gloves and no shin guards, and I had a mouthpiece
Ooh.
in, no headgear, and I'm going to town with these guys, and they're beating the shit out of me. And I had my nose every night, my nose had busted, and my nose got cracked several times. I mean, just you name it, and uh, they was like, "Hey, do you want some shin pads?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm good." I thought the shin pads were to protect my shins. I didn't realize it was to help them. So it made it just that much worse.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. What was your first fight in the octagon?
uh, well, my first pro fight was actually against Derek Noble. I fought Derek Noble, and that's still not on record. And I've contacted everybody. I have the pictures from it. I still have the trophy from it. But I triangle choked him in the first or second round, and it was kind of like a short notice thing. But I had done so many Tuesday night fights up there that Monty Cox like, "Hey, you can't fight in these anymore. People are not going to sign up if they see you sign
Right.
up." And you got to remember when I went up there, I was about 230, 225, 230. So, and
You
they
said
kept
five
telling me
seven, 5'8"?
5'8".
Whew.
So I was living large and in charge.
Yeah,
But
you are happy.
so there's no two ways about it. So they kept telling me to get down and weight, get down and weight. And they're like, you need to fight at 85, 85. And I'm like, oh my God, I'll never make 185. Well, I just kept winning, kept winning every weight class. And I won the victory tournament. They had a middleweight tournament. I won that. And then they had me fight Josh Neer, and he
Hmm.
was like the Midwest man, that had
Yeah.
made it to the UFC. He was quite a bit younger than I was, and I remember one of the remarks like, "That fat ass will never make 170." And I every day before, I don't know if you remember the Underground Forum back in the day,
Yes.
but so that fight was getting talked about, and every morning before I'd work out, I'd read what the everybody was saying about the fight, and it just motivated me. And I got down. I think I weighed in for that fight like at 167 or something like that. So I was
Woo.
under the 170, but some people say that's the greatest fight that's ever happened. You know, if you were going by today's rules, Josh would have definitely won because he kept taking me down. But I felt that I didn't take any damage. I had actually listen to this is kind of crazy. I probably shouldn't tell this part, but I had gotten cut like 3 nights before my fight,
Mm.
and it just so happened one of my students, one of the guys I worked out with, was an ER doctor. So he literally stitched me up in the car outside. And I'm like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And like, well, you got 3 days. So I get to you have to do the wider, the physical and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and they took my stitches out before I went before the commission, and they're poking around on it and like, "Hey, when did this happen?" I'm like, "Oh, don't touch it. You know, that's it's been a couple months ago, but you know, it's still sore." But they're like, "All right." And as soon as I got out of there, my doctor stitched me back up. We threw some Vaseline on it, and I fought. And when I got in the ring. The referee looked at it. He goes, "They cleared you with that?" I said, "They didn't say anything about it," and I fought. So and it never. So
Wow, that's pretty wild. I want to go through. Obviously, we don't have time to discuss every one of your fights in the octagon. I wish we could, uh, but we don't.
I don't remember all of them. So
Well,
when you listed some of the guys the other day, I didn't remember half of them. So
wow. Well, I want to share these names with the people watching this. It's a pretty incredible list. As you said, Josh Neer, Carlo Prater, Tim Means, Tiago Alves, Aaron Riley, Matt Wyman, Dan Lozon, Hermes Franca, Frankie Edgar, Jeremy Stevens, Carl Uno, Joe Stevenson, Dennis Siebert, Ross Pearson, Tiago Tavares, and my favorite trilogy in MMA history, Sam Stout, 3 times, man. That is amazing. That is amazing. I got goosebumps reading it. That's hats off to you, sir. At what point during your fighting career, one of the reasons you're here today, and one of the things I especially want you to share with us is you got into some issues with painkillers.
yeah,
Go ahead and
yeah,
tell us what happened with
yeah.
that, if you don't mind.
Um, I'm not going to drop any names, but like I had a teammate that would come in and he had 2 duffel bags and like yeah, my man, that's a lot of equipment to come around, and I didn't know at the time, but I had bone spurs in my right shoulder,
Hmm.
and it was really causing me not to throw fast. And this was right before the Sam Stout fight, the second one, and I was the main event, and it was clicking, it was making noises, and it was really causing me problems that I
Hmm.
couldn't throw my right hook, and I couldn't really get my jab going. So one of my teammates said, "Hey man, I got two hydrocodone, two Vicodin," and I'm like, "Well, what?" I had taken pain pills before, but never abused them. I didn't know the names of them, and he gave me 2 of them. And I know a lot of people that has had opiate addictions.
Hmm.
They nodded out or were drooling or something negative. But for me, they did the opposite. It motivated me. I mean, I don't know if motivation is right, but it gave me energy, and it went from 2 to 4, and then I went to the doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, you have you got bone spurs, and it's got a problem." So uh, I started taking them, and then you become dependent on them, and you don't realize you're dependent on them.
Hmm.
And it just went from 2 to I know it sounds fictitious, but it was almost like 30 a day, and I know that sounds crazy, but I had people that were able to get them for me, and then whenever I couldn't get them from my doctors, I would buy them off the street. I'd buy them. Someone always had something, and I had a problem with it. And my wife noticed that I was having problems with these things, and Um, I was mad, I was embarrassed, that, I'm like, hey, this is not a problem. I'm still functioning. I do my look at my times, my times are great, but my skin color started changing, like
Mhm.
I was just moody. I started becoming moody, and having a little bit of different personalities. Like when I was taking them, I never did anything but I eat them. I'd eat three or four at a time, and
Mhm.
go on, and then a couple hours later I'd eat more. And, uh, but I'd run. I didn't ever sit around and do anything. I was always staying busy. And then my boxing coach from North Carolina, the best friend I've ever had, my mentor, uh, had been calling me, and I wouldn't talk to him on the phone. And he and his wife drove up to Iowa one time. Didn't tell me. I don't know if they told my wife or not, but he had called me, and I looked down at the phone and seen it was him, and didn't want to answer it. And then there's a knock at my door, and I got up and I peeked around the corner, and I saw him, and he saw me. And I'm like, oh my
Oh,
gosh! And he goes, I know you
oh,
saw me, Spence. He goes, either you can open the door or I'm gonna wait here until Emily gets here. So I try to play it off, and uh, I had let him in, and he said, "What's going on? What? You're acting different. I'm hearing things." And so I was honest with him. I didn't tell him how many, but he said, "If you don't care what it's doing to your life and what because I felt like I had a dependency on them. Like I
mhm.
couldn't train because I was in pain. I mean, I made every excuse in the
Yeah,
world to why I had to."
rationalizations and
Right.
justifications.
And man, I tell you what, but after everybody had told me I had a problem, it was my boxing coach Reggie that set me down. He goes, "Well, let's see what's doing to your pocketbook." And then when I seen what I was paying, off the street value, I could have literally bought two cars, and that's all I needed before I needed. I said, "Holy shit, I need help," and that's exactly what I did.
Wow. Um, Speaking of cars, this is off subject a little bit. I heard a story that Dana once gifted you a new Challenger.
Yeah, it wasn't Dana. It was
Okay.
through my yeah, yeah, I got it as a signing bonus. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah. So, my management and, TKO Dynasty, I think it's what it was called, Mickey Derberly, um, got me a pretty sweet hookup and got me a signing bonus for a car, and, it's supposed to be a $75,000 contract from toe to toe, but, those guys did not pay up, and it was just a lot of hassle with those guys. But as far as the car goes, I had a Challenger already. I had a black one. It was the automatic ones, and they told me that if I signed with them, they said you can go to the car lot, pick any car you want. I'm like, any car, and they're like, yeah. And I didn't believe it. My wife and I went, and the one they had on the showroom floor, I said, "I can have any car." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I want that one."
That one.
And they gave out. So it was awesome. And had the Sony rims. I mean, it was really a really nice car. And
Cool.
so they threw me the keys, and this is no shit. You can ask my wife. I mean, anybody that knows me, they'll tell you this. But as soon as I got in it, everybody, once you get something that comes stock 420, you're going to push it, and I get a
Yeah.
speeding ticket 2 or 3 miles down the road with my friends and my wife, and had it been a male state trooper, he probably would have let me off because of, hey, look, I just got the car, the paper tag was still on it, and she's back there. I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen? Anytime they're taking that long, I know they're running my license, making sure I was legit, and then came
Mhm.
back with a ticket, and she says, "Nice car," and gives me my ticket. I'm like, God, thanks.
That's a cool bonus or a sign on. What back to the Vicodin? What you said that it was the financial aspect that really helped you to see that you needed to make a change. How
Right.
big of a struggle was that change?
Very hard at first. I had to go through several different things and processes to get off of it. and took me a long time. And uh, like I never did anything other than eat them. You know that, I've heard
Mhm.
people snorting them or shooting them. Or, I'm terrified of needles. I got tattoos. I know this makes sense,
Same,
but
same.
yeah. So I literally pass out.
Turn
Whenever I
green,
get
start shaking, sweating. Yeah,
so
yeah,
I went. I went and I got treatments and took me a long time, but I got off of them, and I still right now. I've had a lot of injuries here lately, and surgeries, replacements, and stuff, and I probably got 60 of them still in my bedroom right now that I just have no desire to touch, but they're there because no matter what kind of like I did take some. So when I'm supposed to have back surgery. I'm supposed to have a shoulder replacement and another hip replacement. And I thought I was going to have back surgery a couple weeks ago, and they had given to me, and I couldn't walk. And my left foot was completely numb. And they were like, "You absolutely have to have surgery." And my wife, she does PT, that's what she does. So she said, "Let's try PT first, because if you go under the knife, it's just gonna be worse for you in the long run."
right.
And I didn't think it was going to be able to help, and I did take a couple of them, but like I said, I have both bottles are still in my bedrooms.
You learned your lesson.
Yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, it's funny because like my addiction now is food. Like I don't drink anymore. I just had a seminar a couple of weeks back, and I had a lot of some of the guys from the UFC and my old teammates came up, and they're all drinking, and I think I was the downer because I was the only one that wasn't drinking, and I could see on a couple of their faces like, "Are you not going to drink?" I'm like, I just don't care for it, and I know it kind of killed the mood, they're like, I don't need one either, but I know they wanted to, but I don't know if they felt like it was just an awkward position for me, but my wife drinks wine, and I have no problem with it. We go out, I drink sweet tea, and my addictions now are food. Like, I don't sleep. One of my problems is I don't sleep. I might get 4 hours sleep a night. So I go to bed almost every night between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, absolute latest. But I'm up at 11, 1,
Hmm.
3, and I'll finally go back to bed at 4. But every time I'm up, I'm always in the refrigerator. So eating Haagen
Sweet,
Dazs ice cream. So,
sweet. I knew it. Check out Haagen Dazs rum raisin. It's amazing.
yeah, well, yeah, I like I can't remember. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's a caramel something. But that's all I eat. I used to be all about chocolate, but now it's this one. So.
There you go. Um, we were just talking about the medical issues um, from the Vicodin. You've had a couple more medical issues. If you don't mind sharing them with us, tell us about some of the changes maybe that people around you started to notice in you, and that maybe you noticed in yourself. Um, Speech, memory, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I don't know what more I can tell that's not already been out there, but whenever I'll say this, I haven't been able to walk a straight line since my Hermes Franca fight. Like when I got TKO'd, everybody said, "Oh, they stopped that fight too soon," and no, they didn't. My wife the next day when we flew back, my wife and Josh flew back to the Quad Cities, and I flew to North Carolina. And while I was walking through the airport, I tried to walk a straight line, and I couldn't. But I didn't think anything about it. Never, how often you try to walk a straight line. But as time went on, I started putting stuff in the wrong place. I putting stuff where they didn't belong. Um, I was unaware of what was going on. I couldn't think of words on the spot. I couldn't think of people's names. My biggest problem is when I took my wife and our middle child for her 6th or 8th month checkup. I got her in there. car seat. I'm walking up to the front desk, and the doctor says, "Baby's name and date of birth." And I started I had a breakdown because I couldn't tell you her name. I'm looking at her and I start crying and I called my wife, because I mean, how do you not know your kid's name? And
Right.
I couldn't think of it. And the more I started getting excited over it, I called her,
That's
but as
gotta be
soon as I called
terrifying.
her, I'm like, yeah, I said Kira Nova, Kira Nova Fisher, and then I told her November 7th, and but yeah, at first I couldn't think of it. I just couldn't do it. And then I went to when you get to be a certain age, they give you the old man
Yeah.
physical and stuff, and uh, I started failing. I started failing these tests, and I couldn't understand why. And so one, they sent me from neurologist, and then I got asked by somebody like, "Hey, do you want to fucking fight or not?" And it was their exact words. I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do. This is how I support my family."
Hmm.
So they sent me to a neurologist that was going to for sure pass me. And I told my wife, she went with me, and I said, "Listen, you're going to have to help me pass this test. If I don't fight, that's how we're living.
Hmm.
So she was helping me out. They were asking me what day it was, and I had no idea. I didn't know what like actual day of the week it was, and what floor we were on. And she was for trying to help me out. But then I started missing so many that she ended up saying, "Oh, he puts my phone in the refrigerator." I mean, she started telling on me, and I got mad because she realized how bad it was, and they showed me a picture, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. Um, they said, "Hey, we want you to look at this picture and tell me what the major details." And I started looking at it, and I said, "It's a lady." I thought it was a crazy question at first. I thought, like, am I supposed to see dragons or something? And they're like, no, but what are the main details? And it was a lady. What I saw was a lady washing dishes, and a kid was climbing in the cabinet to get cookies or something. And my wife really got upset then, and he was like, "You really don't see what's going on here?" And I'm like, "Well, that's what I see." And then she was upset. I'm like, "What am I missing? What am I supposed to see?" And there was a fire. The kid was falling out of the cabinet. The sink was overflowing, or I don't remember. It was like something silly that anybody should have picked up, but I didn't. And my speech started. I started mumbling more. It just is my balance was really bad. Um, just anything you could think of, and so they sent me to a doctor that tried to deny that CTE was even a thing. And I remember we sat down at his place, and he said, "Do you think you have it?" I said, "No, I don't." He goes, "I don't either." And they had me cover my eye to look at a screen, and I don't know how this stuff works. And he said, I said close your eye, and I'm like, man, what do you think, I'm trying to fake this? So I they end up taping my eye, and he didn't like what he's seen, and so he said, let's just bypass this. And they did the thing they stick the uh the spinal tap. They did a
Yeah.
spinal tap, and pulled out the proteins for the dementia. And
Mm.
I didn't know what dementia was. I thought it was Parkinson's. Like I'm like, I don't shake. I don't do this stuff. And then they showed me a scan of my brain and other people's brains, and I still didn't know what I was looking at. But I did everything I could to try to fight, but they just wouldn't let me do it. And that was that. So.
Wow. That's uh that's a lot to take in, man. How does it affect your daily life now?
Um, well, sometimes it gets pretty embarrassing because, like, people, I should know their names. Like, it's all in good fun because I have, my friends that I'm really tight with. They'll they'll say something, like you're stumbling on like a drunk, and or like I'll miss numbers, like I'll do a countdown sometimes, and of course, I can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, no problem counting forwards. But sometimes when I do a backwards count, I might miss a number or something, and I feel like an absolute asshole because the people that might not know, um, like it's just embarrassing. Or when I try to go walk to do something, I'll think I'm fine. My teammate and good friend Tim Sylvia came in a couple months ago and was like, "Holy shit!" He calls me Fluffy. And he goes, "Man, you want me to get your wheelchair?" He was just joking, but
Sounds like Tim.
if it'd been anybody else, I would have. Tim's always been like a big brother to me, and just it is what it is, and I'm okay with it now. I've come to deal with it, and I try to do lots of things. I can't. I haven't sparred in years. And since I've been diagnosed, I think I might have one time just to prove a point to somebody, but just I don't spar, but I try to grapple, but my body's falling apart to even do that. But when Josh Neer came in, I always say a couple months ago, but it's been a year. It's been over a year, but he came in, and I used to take pride in being the fastest guy or the guy who could run the furthest. And we went
Hmm.
running, and I remember him going, "Dang, what are you weighing?" And I kept saying, "Oh, 220." And Josh Neer is the most honest person you'll ever meet.
I can
Not
believe
only is
that.
not only is the toughest guy that I've ever met in my life. I mean, but I've trained with every top gym, that I've ever
Hmm.
wanted to, and there's no comparison to Josh Neer. I mean, absolutely the toughest person I've ever met in my life. His work ethic is second to none. I mean, a lot of people take losing hard. I mean, I'd cry after my losses, but this guy, I mean, it just wasn't acceptable to lose. I mean, he's just someone I've always respected, probably more than anybody else in the fight world. And we went running, and I was pushing probably 250, almost 245. It's the heaviest I've ever been. But he went and ran circles around what I did, and then we got back, and his girlfriend said he runs something ridiculous, like 100 miles. I don't remember if it was a week or a month or something, but still, that's a shitload of time. So
Either way.
it motivated me. Yeah, it motivated me, and I started running, and now I'm down to 195. So I'm like 10 pounds of what I want to be walking around at. So it was a big deal, and I've talked to Rob Lawler, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing for diet? Are you lifting? You need to meditate and drink kombucha. I'm like, I'll never drink that shit. And then now when I last talked to him, he goes, "What about the kombucha?" I'm like, "I'm not drinking that stuff. It tastes like vinegar." He goes, "It's an acquired taste, man." And I'm like, I'm not drinking it. But now I drink probably two or three. They're expensive, but I really like them, and I've been fasting. Robbie said, he said, "Have you tried fasting?" And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that, but I do now. So because I eat at night, and
Mhm.
I don't eat again from like 4 in the morning until 8 at night. So for me, that's pretty good. But my problem is I eat at night. So
I have the same problem, man. What sort of therapy exercises do you do to keep yourself sharp?
uh, this is funny. I still talk too fast sometimes, but I was mumbling, and I started. It's not Parkinson's, but it's Parkinsonism, like Parkinson's, like symptoms like that you show. My hands started shaking. They were twitching, and I didn't realize it. And I started panicking when it did. Like I mean, like uh like I can't imitate how my finger would start twitching, and I'd have my hand either hold my kid's hand or have my hand on my wife's back, and they're like, "Oh, you're what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh man." So then I stopped touching people, stopped holding hands with people because I started. People start calling me out on it when I started ranking people like too much caffeine, and it would make me self conscious of it.
Hmm.
So Master Hicks and Gracie actually suggested that I start taking these certain vitamins. You know, he told me to try taking some magnesium and stuff, and I started taking it. And then, sure enough, the doctors told me the same things. I play guitar, and I actually take singing lessons, so for my speech. So,
Okay.
uh,
Let's see if we can get
and I
you on the
enjoy it.
Masked Singer.
Let's say again.
Let's see if we can get you on the Masked Singer.
I know, good from afar, but far from good. And but I like it, you know. But my I can't stay focused whenever I try to play the guitar. It's either too fast or you know. But once I get like the first part of the song, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. Then I go to something else. So I never finish anything. So
That's awesome. Tell us what a normal day in your life is like. What does Spencer do to stay busy?
so I was let me see what it is. So in the morning. So it depends on what's going on. We get up around 7. Everybody is up already moving around. My wife gets up at 4:30, goes for a run every morning. So she's always up early doing stuff. Um, then I either take the kids to school, and then I go to the gym and teach classes. I have to write stuff down. I if I don't plan it ahead of time, I don't have any type of structure. So I look up what my planner is for my gym and what month we're on. So I go off of that, and then I'll just put a plan together for that week. And then literally on Saturday or Sunday, I'll have my wife, or who's ever here, I'm like, hey, stand right here and throw a jab at me, and I'll slip it, and I'll put stuff together to where it used to be that I could do, 12 rounds of so we do 6 rounds and we stop, and then the other person puts pads on. I used to be able to be on top of like, all right, this, and this, and each round be exactly. But now, if I don't write it down and have a curriculum, then it might be something off my head, which everybody seems to like better when I do it off the top of my head, but not everybody gets the same workout then, so, but, so I absolutely have to plan stuff, a week in advance, before I go throughout my week. Then I come home, I run every like Monday through Saturday, and then it's time for class again. If I got some downtime, I try to play as much guitar as I can. And on the weekends, I'm trying to build my YouTube channel and do gun reviews and scope reviews and hunting stuff. So that's my passion, and that's what I do on the side. So
Big deer hunter.
more than anything else, I love it more than fighting, more than anything I've ever done in my life. Like deer hunting is, and all my friends, I've lost fights because I was out in the woods. I would go out early, hunt, and then come back in time for class. And my fight with Frankie Edgar, after the best fight of my life with Sam Stout, I fought Frankie after that. I think it was the second. Yeah, I think so. But all my time, my wife was like, "Hey, where's your head at?" And Josh Neer said the same things, like, "Yeah, you're not taking this fight seriously." And um, to me, I was doing everything I did for the Sam Stout fight, but my heart wasn't in it. My times were the
He's
same.
up in
My
the deer
stop
stand.
wise, everything, but just I'd rather be in the woods. So.
Gotcha. Um, how can fans of yours, people that want to follow you and stay in contact and see what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I like I said, I did have a couple of my students. We were doing videos and doing video gun reviews and scope reviews, and our channel was called Send It FFH, and we got copyrighted. So my guy had like high definition cameras, and we didn't look to the music part of it, we start putting like different songs up there and like Johnny Cash and just old country songs and well, copyright infringements. You can't have that song on there or this song. And so we had to take them down and shoot them with a camera, like a regular phone camera, and it's just not the same. So I have a lot of re-videoing to do, and but send it, and then other than Facebook, I really don't keep up with people that much. Like my life consists of my family, and I go and do my responsibilities at the gym, and but I'm a homebody anymore. So unless it's seminars, but if you want the seminars, if any, I need seminars, like that's the one thing I can do the rest of my life, because I've done it all my life, and
Sure.
so, whatever it's jujitsu, and I still do those. I got a couple lined up already these next 3 weeks. So and like I said, but the only way to get a hold of me really is through social media. So I have two or three Facebooks because like I just try to keep the content open, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to. I've been told when some of the guys came out this past couple of weeks, we were telling stories of the old times, and like man, one of the guys like these stories are true, and we were like yeah, and they're like wait, all of them are true, and because some of my friends from Iowa had added some videos of this stuff, and he said he's never heard such stories as this, like some of the stories we were telling. He's like, this can't be real. And then whenever we showed him the video, he's like, man, you got to do a podcast and tell these stories. But when I told some of my old teammates I was going to do that, like, hey, hold up, you can't be name dropping and telling certain stories. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
No
I,
locker
I
room
would.
talk.
Right, right, right. But so maybe I could change the names and like, yeah, everybody's gonna know who you're talking about if you
Yeah.
say some.
Yeah.
And of course, I you can't tell on everybody else and not tell about yourself. And I told my wife, what I was gonna do, and she said, listen, my parents are just starting to like you. Don't go and screw it up. So,
Just
uh,
now.
so
Um, if you had to give a message to the people who are going to see this and listen to it, who may be going through addiction issues, financial issues, medical issues, any and all of the struggles that we all go through in daily life, what would you say to them about not giving up, staying positive, and just continuing to go?
uh, I know it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, but uh, to love everyone, and not to hold grudges. And I know it's kind of cheesy to say that,
No, brother.
but the more, yeah, like I've had to have a change in my life, in the past year and a half, and it's been for the better because I stopped trying to be somebody I wasn't, and
Hmm.
I let go of all the grudges that I was holding against people, and some things were pretty tough to get over, but um, I figure if there's a higher power, which I believe there is, that if you put out love, you'll receive it back, and um, that's the only way to get through life. If you hold on to grudges, it just wears you down. And if you got an addiction, the people do love you, and if you love yourself and you love them, you'll fix what needs to be fixed. I know
Spencer,
that's kind of generic, but I would never have said that a couple years ago, But it's the truth. I mean, I don't know. We're only on this earth for a blink of an eye, and then it's gone. And we don't know. I know from personal experience, from losing your best friends or losing everyone you have, and you just gotta make the most of what you have, and make sure you tell the people that you love them, because whether it's you or them, we're not promised tomorrow.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I want to thank you for giving me your time tonight. I want to thank you for every text message, every phone call. I have no doubt that what you shared with us tonight will touch some people. It is going to help someone, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for for spending your time with us. I consider you a friend at this point. I hope you consider me one as well. I would love to talk to you again sometime, maybe a little bit down the road when you get some more guns sighted in, get a couple more rounds off. You can tell me what you got in the back of the truck, and we can talk about that.
That's right. I appreciate your time. And again, like I said, that message I said about loving yourself and loving others is probably the most important message for humanity in general. So
I couldn't agree with you more, man. If we all strive to help each other, how can it not be a better place?
that's right.
All right,
And
Spencer.
keep pay attention to how the world's going. It's not a positive thing. So
We need
we
to,
participate. So
yeah, we need each other more now than ever, man. All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Tell Mrs. Fisher, shout out again. She sounds like an awesome lady. Um, as soon as I get this uploaded, I'll give you a shout, man.
all right, thanks a lot.
All
Appreciate you
right.
having me on.
All right. Thank you, sir.